Dear subscribers, as you know, we shared many information for you, and we are studying very hard to find current news for you. However, I cannot use this channel for future. Please follow our new channel called as Daily News Report and watch our video to support us. Link in description. Also, you can reach the video we shared on Daily News Report by clicking on the top right button. We highly recommend watching, subscribing, and sharing. We will continue to share some news on this channel, but we take precautions against some situations for future. Thank you for supporting us.
He's got people around him that he's a CEO, a head of a company. He likes to delegate, and I think he delegates a little bit too much. I think it's bad to be too hands-on, and it's equally bad, maybe worse, to be too hands-off. I think Trump is too hands-off. There's no question he delegated war-making to generals. He delegated economic policy to Goldman Sachs. And apparently he's delegated a lot more to so much more that goes on in the country. And with all of the turmoil swirling around him, I wonder if even after just a few months in office, he's got buyer's remorse about ever wanting this job in the first place. My goodness, I'd never want to be going through what he's going through. But I have a feeling, Dave, he was set up and influenced to fire Comey. Not that I have any sympathy for Comey or like him. I think anybody associated with any of the U.S. intelligence agencies, the FBI being one of them, the domestic one, the CIA, the overseas one, but it's really a global one, I think as active in America as it is any place else. I mean, the people that run these things and their aims are absolutely nefarious. They don't care who they harm. So if Trump doesn't go along, or if they think he doesn't go along with everything they want to do, then he becomes the target. The head of state can be as vulnerable as anybody, a lot more vulnerable, Dave, a lot more vulnerable than I am, given what I do, because I certainly don't change the way the world is run. But the position that he's in, he's got a lot of power, a lot of influence, but certainly not enough to keep himself free from being attacked. And he's being attacked relentlessly through the campaign, post the election, and ongoing now. I wrote an article today about the Washington Post making accusations against him. But this stuff goes on every day. So again, I think he was set up. He fired Comey. I don't know if he could have done it in a better way. He probably could have handled the situation by just letting him stay there. I don't know that he will have anybody else replacing him that will be any better for him in his administration than Comey was. So I think maybe in hindsight at some future time, I and others will look back and think it was a mistake to do it.
Do you think that the powers that be, I call them the deep state, I mean, we're getting from all the information you just mentioned, the Washington Post, where they're saying that he gave classified or information to the Russians. Does it seem like they're doing everything they possibly can to try to remove him from office?
Yeah, that's exactly what I feel. I think they're using everything, a two-pronged war, Dave, bashing Russia, which goes on endlessly. And of course, they didn't bash Obama when he was in office, which they should have. Just a horrible president. I wrote an article about him today based on an interview he just gave, well, a few days ago that he gave. I think the other aim is getting rid of Trump. So you got to weaken him, you got to delegitimize him, you got to make him look like damaged goods. A plot to eliminate him from office. I think it's very similar to what went on against Nixon. Nixon, my God, he had a good first term. He was reelected in 1972 overwhelmingly against George McGovern. And here Trump, just a few months into his administration, and he's being assailed relentlessly by the media, by Democrats, convincing the public that he's damaged goods. I wrote a couple of days ago, the latest, if I'm pronouncing the university right,
Quinnipiac?
Quinnipiac University had his approval rating at 36%, 1% higher than his all-time low. This was a few days ago. Let's say it's roughly about the same thing. If you can keep bashing him and getting public opinion against him, it softens him up for, I think, a plot to get rid of him. And I think that's the scheme, Dave.
Do you think the information that he gave the Russians, do you think it was actually classified? Because to me, it's strange. He was meeting with Sergei Lavrov in the Oval Office, and he's handing him classified information in the open. I mean, does that make sense to you?
No, I made a comment in my article this morning that I don't think he told the Russians, Russia's ambassador and Sergei Lavrov, ambassador to Washington and Sergei Lavrov, I don't think he told them anything that they don't already know.
Yeah.
So the idea that he should be bashed for doing this, H.R. McMaster, his national security advisor, said the only thing they discussed was terrorism and nothing out of the ordinary, nothing improper, nothing illegally was relayed by Trump to the Russian officials. Well, I don't usually trust McMaster, but I think he was right on the mark. I don't think anything illegal or improper was disclosed to Lavrov.
Now, shouldn't the bigger issue be the leaking of all this information? I mean, since he's been in office, I mean, we've been seeing leaks all over the place, and that is actually a crime, but no one is concerned about any of the leaks. Don't you find that odd?
Yeah, nobody is concerned about it. There are an awful lot of Obama holdovers in his administration. The Democrats have gone way out of their way to obstruct new Obama officials from being confirmed. So that really has thrown a monkey wrench into the process. I'm sure he's very angry about this. And in a separate article I wrote, I quoted another website's article saying that he's really frustrated and furious about the stuff going on around him. Maybe he has house cleaning intended to get rid of some people in the administration who he thinks aren't serving him properly. We haven't seen it yet. We know what happened to Michael Flynn, but we haven't seen it again wholesale. The names I mentioned were Reed Priebus, Steve Bannon. I mean, amazing people close to him, especially Bannon, who helped him get elected. I think Priebus helped him get elected too. If he jettisons these people, it would really be something. The only people he knows he can trust are his family members. They're certainly around his side. So they're people he absolutely can trust. I think he trusts or maybe a few others around him, but anyone he's brought in from the outside, people that he might be suspicious of, and there's no question that the long knives are out to get him, and he's got great cause to be concerned. I don't think he did anything out of the ordinary with his meeting with Russians at the White House.
You know what I keep hearing? I keep on hearing, especially from Maxine Waters, impeachment. And they're going, and they're using the approach of his mental stability. And they're trying to, I mean, as we can see, they're trying to do whatever they possibly can to bring him down, to get him impeached. My question to you is, if they can't do it legally, I guess if that's the term I use, lawfully, through impeachment, do you think they'll get so fed up that they'll do what they did to Kennedy?
Possible. I think Trump is the only president to enter office completely despised by the establishment. Well, not completely. I think I think America's deep state is divided on him because he never could have gotten elected if the deep state was 100% against him, Dave. Elections in America going back to at least, I forget the exact date, maybe about 1837. I don't think it was not 1825, but maybe the election, maybe it was 1829 or April 1833, that the first U.S. election was rigged to install the leader that the people in America wanted to have the U.S. president. So rigging elections is longstanding practice in America. If Trump didn't have enough support from the deep state, he never could have gotten elected. I think the deep state is split. The ones for him saw Hillary as damaged goods, and the ones against him wanted Hillary elected no matter. But we've got a real split. But it's easy to go at him in many, many ways. And I don't know who's more powerful. The idea that he would want rapprochement with Russia would turn the entire deep state against him. So he's got the Democrats against him. He may have more deep state people against him. Certainly has Obama and Hillary against him. So they're giving him a very bad time. I don't think any other president in U.S. history has faced this so early in his administration. Again, Nixon didn't do it. Nixon didn't face it. Clinton didn't face it, and there's no president in U.S. history who has been impeached and removed by impeachment. Nixon wasn't removed this way. He resigned to avoid impeachment. Andrew Johnson was impeached, but he wasn't removed. And Obama, not Obama, but Trump may be impeached. Whether he'll be, if he's removed by impeachment, it'll be a first in U.S. history. And I quoted John Adams a couple of times in past articles saying, if this ever happens, it will be a national cataclysm. So whether it'll happen or not, I don't know. But the pressure on him could be so intense, they could force him to resign. And if he doesn't do it, Dave, they could eliminate him the old-fashioned way. Same thing they did to Jack Kennedy.
I wanted to switch this up and I wanted to talk about what was happening out in Syria because it seems like there's a really big push right now to go back into, I mean, not that we ever left, but to get Assad again because we're hearing, I mean, we had that chemical weapons attack, which everyone's calling the U.S. government out and the corporate media out that it was completely fake. Now they're talking about this crematorium where Assad is, burning prisoners and killing them. And they're continually pushing their agenda to get into Syria. Do you think that they're preparing something big and this is why they're building up all of these stories right now?
I wrote about all of these things, Dave. Yeah, I think this is part of the Assad bashing. There's absolutely no question that America wants peace talks undermined. The first round of peace talks in Geneva happened in 2012. They went nowhere. There was a second round. There was a third round. I think the second round, was in 2014. There was a third round last year, I believe. That lasted a couple of days and it just dissolved. It went nowhere. So we have the new round that began, and it's continuing with multiple discussions, additional discussions going on in Astana, Kazakhstan. Bashar al-Assad was more optimistic about the Astana talks, the Geneva talks. I wrote about that, but I didn't understand his reasoning. It seems to me the same dark forces want all of it undermined, and the opposing forces to Syria, they want war continued because they're manipulated by Washington, by Saudi Arabia, by Israel, supporting these terrorist groups. And I think there's no question that America still wants regime change. The original aim when Obama lost war on Syria in March 2011. The same thing is going on. Trump inherited it. He's escalated it with extra efforts in northern Syria. I don't think anything has changed, and that's the plot, I think. They want the war continued. They want Assad removed. They want God knows what replacing him. They want the country turned into a disaster, more of a disaster than already. And Russia is the only thing standing in the way of this. If any leaders and nation ever deserve a Nobel Peace Prize, it's Russia, it's Sergei Lavrov, it's Vladimir Putin. But of course they won't get it because the Nobel Committee is allied with the West and against whatever Russia might do.
Now, Russia and Syria, they've been fighting the Islamic State. They've been fighting the actual terrorists and pretty much destroying them throughout the country. And they set up this de-escalation zone. And of course, the United States, the deep state, they don't like the de-escalation zone. Do you think they're getting nervous because what we're seeing right now is that they're terrorist groups, they are being pushed back, destroyed, and they're running out of time? Because pretty soon, as Russia and Syria, as they continually move east, there's going to be nothing left for the intelligence agencies, the deep state. Their terrorist groups are going to completely disappear.
The only thing that gives me encouragement, Dave, I think is right along what you're saying. It's taken a great deal of time, but Russia and Syria and Hezbollah and Iran, with a lot of advisory help, the combination of all four have made great progress, even though it's been very halting at times. It's taken great pains. It's a long way from reaching the stage where conflict resolution is possible, because America can come up with all kinds of ways to keep the conflict boiling. But so much has been accomplished. Russia, ISIS and other terrorist groups have been eliminated from numerous villages and communities. And the longer this goes on, and I really believe that Putin and the Russian government are committed to taking this thing to conclusion and preventing Syria from becoming another American imperial trophy. Because if that happens, then Iran is isolated. There'll be another war there. And if Iran goes down, Russia and China are left isolated, and they know that they're the next targets. And there'll be the possibility of war in their countries. You either can fight the war in Syria or end up fighting it in their own territories. Better to do it the way they're doing it now. And Russia has got the power, the military strength to keep doing it. So maybe they can wait, maybe they can continue at this and literally beat Washington in its dirty game. But this thing could go on for many months or years, Dave. I have no idea what the end of this could be. But if Russia stays the course, I think it'll be victorious and America will be the loser. And if necessary, I think even China would join in. And a Russia-China alliance, I think, is more than America can cope with.
This reminds me of Afghanistan with the Soviet Union, where the Soviet Union was, in debt and their economy wasn't doing well. And it seems like it's the opposite now, where Russia's economy is doing well. They have very, very little debt. The United States has a huge amount of debt. The economy's not doing well. And Russia, just like the United States did to the Soviet Union, they can just wait it out and let the whole system just collapse.
I'd love to believe that America would suddenly get tired of the wars they were waging, Dave, and decide, "Oh, to hell with it. Let's call it over." I don't know that will ever be. I don't think it'll happen in my lifetime. I mean, we can see what happens. America has an easy way to finance these wars. It's called the printing press.
Yeah.
The Fed can print up all the money that they need to keep waging these wars, so they go on. I mean, the Afghanistan experience really tells it all. Begun in October 2001. Here it is, getting toward the middle of 2017, and the war goes on endlessly. And apparently, Trump is getting ready to send more troops over there. Heaven forbid, but it looks like he's going to do it because the hawkish generals in the administration want it, and insiders in the military and in America's military. And I've written about this long ago, years ago, saying the war was lost years ago, but they keep fighting. They keep beating a dead horse. They keep fighting because they want to keep waging it because it's great for the war profiteers. I don't know if it's not wanting to admit they've lost the war. They know they've lost the war. They know there's no way of winning it. But I mean, 10 years from now, this war could keep going on. Can 10 years from now, the war in Syria be going on? It's possible, Dave.
We have one other place, well, not just one, but another place where they've been really pushing the propaganda, and that's North Korea. And, North Korea's, they're firing their missiles, but they've been testing missiles going all the way back to like 2006 or so. And just all of a sudden, they're very concerned about it, and they continually push the propaganda out there that North Korea is going to attack America. I mean, do you really think this is a possibility?
I say the chance is zero.
So you don't believe what the corporate media is saying, that they're going to fire a missile and hit San Francisco or Hawaii?
Yeah, I don't believe a word they say. I don't believe a word out of Washington. I don't believe a word out of any of the NATO countries. I don't believe a word out of Israel, out of Turkey, a supposed ally of Iran and Russia, and setting up these escalation zones. Well, I mean, by the way, Erdogan is in Washington today, meeting with Trump. I mean, he wants this guy Gulen extradited, and he wants northern Syria annexed. He wants northern Iraq annexed. He's a rogue leader, a despot. That's another issue entirely. I'm sorry, North Korea. When North Korea came into existence, terrible deal. The Soviet Union agreed with America to divide the country at the end of World War II. But since that period, in its entire history, 1945 to the present, North Korea never once attacked another country. The South attacked the North in June 1953, not the other way around. Harry Truman's war, not Kim Il-sung's war. But you never know it. You never know it from the history that America tells. And I don't think there's a chance at all that North Korea would attack any country. Why would North Korea attack America? My God, if they wanted annihilation, that would be a great way to do it. So I don't think this will happen. And the only reason they have a nuclear and ballistic missile program is hopefully that they can deter America from launching another war. That's the only reason. They want it for defense, not offense.
So you think they're very worried because they see what they do to other countries where the deep state, the U.S., the central banks, they go into these countries, they have regime change. This is what they're really worried about.
Yeah, they really are. And I've written about how America turned North Korea to rubble in the 1950s, 50 to 1953, when the armistice came into effect. I mean, the American bombers literally ran out of targets. The country was just absolutely decimated. 3-4 million people killed. I forget what the population was then, but just absolute devastation. So the North Koreans know their history. Americans know nothing, and they certainly don't want to go through this again. And I mean, there could be, of course, North Korea now has nuclear weapons. The South Korea wants none of this. The only good news in the region was the election of the South Korean president, Moon Jae-in. He wants a new sunshine policy. He wants dialogue with North Korea. He's being heavily pressured by Washington not to do this. And he said, I think maybe because of the pressure, that, how can I have dialogue if North Korea still pursues its nuclear program and maybe has tests of ballistic missiles? He wants that to stop, which I would agree with him. I would want that to stop. South Korea is the most vulnerable if there's another war. Even if North Korea's nuclear program was taken out, it's got thousands of pieces of artillery, all aimed at South Korea, maybe at Japan. I don't think it'll range that far, but it could decimate South Korea. It could devastate U.S. troops in South Korea. The South Koreans want no part of this. Now they've got THAAD missiles on their territory, partially activated, threatening the North, threatening China, threatening Russia. A devastating situation. How much Trump is going along with this, I don't know. I think the generals are instituting these policies, and they tell Trump about it afterwards, Dave.
I agree with you. And the other thing I want to talk about is the ransomware, where it affected many, many countries, many, many computer systems, not really here in the United States, but what we see right now is that the corporate media is coming out and they're saying that the ransomware is tied to North Korea. Do you actually believe that this ransomware, North Korea spread this out to the world except for the United States, and they're wreaking havoc around the world?
I wrote about it this morning. I try to have at least one feature article a day. This doesn't always work. I don't have a daily blog, a daily blockbuster to put on. I wish I did, but I wrote about this morning. The Washington Post broke the story, and then the New York Times picked it up, and the rest of the corporate media. You have to ask the obvious question: what possible gain could North Korea have to do this if there was any chance that it was discovered that it was the culprit? It would give Washington a pretext to bash the living daylights out of the country. So you have to believe that the last thing North Korea would ever want to do would be to do something like this. No, I think the chance that North Korea did this was zero, Dave.
My other question is, I mean, if North Korea, let's say we go along with what they're saying, why didn't they hit the United States with the ransomware? I mean, of course, the United States is going to say, the computers are protected, which is completely impossible. But there are not many hospitals, corporations. The Washington says their computer systems are fine. So really, the U.S. wasn't really hit. It was the rest of the world. And since the United States is, continually provoking North Korea, wouldn't you think they would try to hit the United States with this?
Yeah, I would think so. Although I'm very computer unsavvy, so I have no idea if I have no idea what you do when you want to commit an act like this, how you can direct it in the proper places, keep it away from other places. I have no idea what you're supposed to do. But I would imagine that you could direct it at countries, even if you couldn't name it specifically at all the things you wanted to hit. But you could certainly target America, stay after countries you wanted to be allied with. So attack enemies, not allies. I imagine you could do this. Maybe also once you unleash it, maybe there's no idea how far the thing can spread. But again, I just can't imagine that North Korea would have anything to do with this. In 2014, David, I wrote about this earlier. North Korea was accused of hacking Sony Pictures because they came out with a film, a very derogatory film about their president, including a plot to assassinate him. Sounded like a great grade B Hollywood plot, and they accused Sony of hacking Sony Pictures and revealing film scripts and other internal information. And I think later it was shown that North Korea had nothing to do with this. So they accused them then falsely. They were accusing North Korea now falsely, suggesting it. I should say not accusing it. I think the Washington Post came up with language suggesting that it might be their fault, not knowing it was their fault. So they haven't gotten to the stage of accusing, but suggesting is a virtual accusation.
How far do you think the deep state is going to take all of this? Do you really think they're going to push us into war?
I think there's no question that America wants regime change in all sovereign, independent countries. And the two main ones they want them in are China and Russia, and the one after that is Iran, because Israel wants it so badly. So Iran is targeted for regime change. There have been war plans drawn up against all these countries for a long time, updated over time. But I think regime change is the plan. And if it can't be accomplished one way, then I think nuclear war would be the other way, Dave. It's a devastating possibility. I think it could happen either by design or mistake. And if it ever happens, it could be curtains for all of us.
Stephen, thank you very much for being on the X22 Report Spotlight. Once again, how can people see your work?
They can find me very easily by just Googling my last name, Lendman, Lendman. It's the way I access my blog site, and I put new articles up every day when I'm healthy. I am right now, thankfully, and they'll see new articles up there every single day.
Stephen, thank you very much for being on the Spotlight. I really appreciate it.
My thanks to you for having me on.
Thank you.